The FedLife podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a fiduciary, fee-based financial planning firm serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of Raymond James. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc. And now, here are your hosts. Dan Sipe serves as a branch manager for Raymond James Financial Services and Serving Those Who Serve. Ed Zerndorfer is our guest and federal benefits expert in the space.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the FedLife podcast. If you don't know me or you're new, I'm your host, Dan Sipe. I'm actually the founder of Serving Those Who Serve, and additionally, I'm the branch manager here at Serving Those Who Serve and Lee Sipe and Associates. I want to begin, as I always do, by saying thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and above all, thank you for your service to the government, the country, to me, to everyone. You don't hear that enough normally. You are definitely not hearing it enough right now. And that's why we are doubling down, trying to push as much valuable information out to you as we can. We are here with you through this, and we will stay with you through the entire process. Once again, Ed Zerndorfer is back with us. The Guru is here as part of our ongoing mission to reach, teach, and serve you. Once again, if you're a regular, you know we try and follow Ed's FedZone articles to give us one more way to reach and teach. Some folks like to watch and listen more than read. Now, I do encourage everyone to head over to the FedZone. That's fed-zone.com, because essentially what we've done is we've done your note-taking for you. So if you're watching this and you want to furiously take notes, you don't have to. Just grab the article. Wow. You know, this might be one of the most important episodes we've done in a long time. As I've shared with you, we are meeting and helping feds at a record rate right now. You know, last year I had shared with you, we had 720,000 visitors to the website. We're over 530,000, so far for this year. And that is fantastic. What's not fantastic, one of the biggest misconceptions that we're running into out there is, I will lose everything if they riff me or fire me. And we are here to address that now. So, Ed, you wrote a great and timely piece on how most FERS employees are in fact vested in their retirement and also in TSP, correct?
That is correct, Dan. That is correct. It's not easy losing one's job, being riffed, fired, whatever. But it's nice to know as a federal employee, you are going to walk away with something.
Gotcha.
In terms
so
of your
you
retirement.
Kick off the article with a description of vesting.
What you salvage from your days as a federal employee. Just remember, Dan, that there are three components to the FERS in case of the FERS retirement. We have the FERS annuity, that's the guaranteed pension. We have the thrift savings plan, and we have Social Security. Social Security, you'll never lose that. Because when an individual applies for the Social Security benefit, usually in their mid to late 60s, their benefit is based on what they paid into Social Security at various places of employment. They worked at different places. Almost all employees, I should say today, who work an employer are covered by Social Security and therefore pay the FICA tax, and thereby they're earning their benefits throughout their life. They never lose that. So that's one thing definitely that federal employees should keep in mind, that whatever they have contributed to Social Security those years as an employee are not going to be lost. But the other two components of the FERS retirement, the FERS annuity and TSP, that was the point of my column. Talk about how federal employees are vested in their retirement and how so.
Okay. So you begin with a description of the vesting in the FERS basic annuity. So tell us about that.
The word vesting means that when you're an employee and you're working for an employer who is sponsoring some type of retirement plan, And there are really two types of retirement plans out there that employers offer. One are what we call defined benefit plans, which are guaranteed pensions, an example of which is a FERS annuity. And the other type of a retirement plan offered by employers are defined contribution plans. Examples of those are the thrift savings plan, 401k plans, 403b plans, 457 plans. Those are the two types of retirement plans. Now, in case of federal employees, particularly FERS employees, because CSRS employees also have their own guaranteed pension in the form of a CSRS annuity. The cost for that plan, most of the cost of the FERS annuity is paid for by the federal government. The federal government, that's the employer-sponsored plan. The same thing with the CSRS retirement. But FERS employees and CSRS employees do contribute to their retirement plans. In particular, in the case of the FERS annuity, they contribute a portion of their paycheck. How much they contribute each pay date depends on when they were hired. Very briefly here, if you're a FERS employee and you were hired into federal service, brand new hire, before January 1st, 2013, you are contributing 0.8%. That's 0.008 of your wages every pay date. Doesn't seem like a lot of money. But every pay period you're paying that. And then if you're hired as a new FERS employee, sometime during the year 2013, you're contributing more, 3.1% of your paycheck into the FERS Retirement Disability Fund. And anybody hired after December 31st, 2013, so a brand new hire, is contributing 4.4% of their paycheck. It's deducted and contributed to the FERS Retirement Disability Fund. So that is the cost to employees. Every pay date they're paying that.
Gotcha. And in your article, you share 3 key facts that our Fed should be aware of relative to this. What are they?
Yes, those three facts. One second, I just want to make sure I don't miss all this. Get all the answers. I want to make sure I get all the information. Number one, those contributions that are made by the employee every 2 weeks comes from where? Their paycheck. Their paycheck is deducted on a post-tax basis. Now that's important. It's post-tax. It's not pre-tax. An employee doesn't get any tax break up front for that. And most importantly, those contributions belong to the employee. Now, when a FERS employee retires, they get those contributions back as part of their monthly annuity. And I point this out during our tax planning for retirement webinar, that because those contributions were made with after-tax dollars, that part of their annuity, they're getting that money back, part of the annuity is not taxable. That
Gotcha.
portion of the annuity is it's not taxable. All right. Number 2, every payroll contribution that the employee makes every 2 weeks means that the employee is 2 weeks closer to being eligible to retire. In order to retire from federal service, a federal employee has to fulfill 2 requirements, Dan. 1, they have to have a minimum number of years of service, and 2, be at a minimum age.
Gotcha.
Age is the easy one. We know when we were born. But what do I mean being eligible? That you have worked the minimum number of years and contributed to the FERS Retirement Disability Fund to be able to retire immediately. What does retire immediately mean? You met those 2 requirements. Minimum age, minimum years of service, and you retire and you get the first of lifetime FERS annuity checks 1 to 2 months after you retire for the rest of your life, Dan. Guaranteed. Who's guaranteeing it? The federal government.
Gotcha.
They're guaranteeing you're going to get that check. You're not going to outlive it. Now, this is important because suppose you don't meet those minimum number of years of service. You don't reach the minimum age and you leave federal service. Does that mean you're not going to get your annuity? The answer is, if you have contributed a minimum 5 years, putting in that money, 0.8%, 3.1%, 4.4%, whatever it is, and you leave federal service, you can get your annuity later. It's called deferred retirement. Deferred retirement. You earn that annuity just by working that minimum number of years, at least 5, and you will get your annuity. We'll talk a little more about that later, about what deferred retirement is all about. Because I will tell you for a fact that when a federal employee, FERS employee in this case, leaves federal service, they have the option of saying, listen, I'm not going to retire from federal service. I'd like to get a refund of all those contributions. It's their money, Dan.
Sure.
How did they put the money in? Where did it come from? Where did those contributions come from, Dan?
Came out of payroll deduction.
Their paycheck. That's their money. They have a right to get it back. But what I preach during our monthly webinars on FERS, don't make the mistake of withdrawing your contributions. I don't care how many years it is. It's less than 5. Don't do it. And the reason is, you could always come back to federal service, finish out your career, and then retire with the full benefits. All right. So when a FERS employee has contributed a minimum 5 years, just 5 years, they're what we call vested. What does vested mean? It means they're going to be guaranteed some amount of a pension. When? It depends. When they retire. Immediately or deferred. But the key is 5 years means you're vested in the system.
Yep. And that's super important. And a lot of people are not getting that, and it's not being shared with them within the system. Now, next, Ed, your article expands on something that a lot of people probably don't use these terminologies on a daily basis. You talk about FERS creditable service investing. So walk us through that.
When I mention about the minimum 5 years to be vested, we're talking minimum 5 years of what's creditable service. Now, what is creditable service? Creditable service means that you made a contribution to some retirement system. In this case, certainly FERS, you made a contribution from your paycheck, or you made a deposit. Now, there are some FERS employees who in the past may have had temporary service. When you're a temporary employee, you don't really have any benefits except you accrue annual leave and sick leave. But you're not covered by any retirement system, either CSOs or FERS. When that temporary employee is hired into federal service, hopefully something was mentioned to the employee when they were hired by their human resources office or their personnel office. Hey, we noticed you had some temporary service. Do you realize you can make a deposit for that? Employee, what do you mean a deposit? Well, you realize that when you were working as a temporary employee, you were not contributing to any retirement system. You have an opportunity to make a deposit contributing to the FERS Retirement Disability Fund. What you could have if you were actually contributing when you were working as a temporary employee. That deposit, I'm not going to get into too many details there. It's equal to 1.3% of whatever the employee earned, whatever their wages were as a temporary employee, and there'll probably be some interest charges. But the fact of the matter is, if they make that deposit, they get credit. They get credit for FERS. It would be count towards the vesting. Certainly, gotcha. When a FERS employee is working and the contributions are being to the FERS Retirement Disability Fund are being deducted every 2 weeks, that's considered to be credible service. But a federal employee may have had other creditable service. Let me give you an example. Back in the mid-'80s, between 1985 and 1987, this is when new employees were coming in. After I should say, right after, it was 1984 to 1986, 1984, 1986. At that time, Dan, FERS was getting started.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody hired into federal service back in those days, between 1984 and 86, was supposed to have been put in FERS, but there was a lot of things going on there. FERS was not ready to get started. So Congress created something called CSRS interim. What is interim? You are covered by CSRS. You are contributing when you're working into the Civil Service Retirement and Disability Fund. However, you also are covered by Social Security. That doesn't make sense because CSRS employees don't. I was a CSRS employee for 32 years, never put a dime into Social Security because I wasn't covered by Social Security. But the fact of the matter is that these employees, these so-called CSRS interim employees, contributed both to CSRS, the CSRS Retirement Disability Fund, and to Social Security. How so? The normal contribution into the CSRS Retirement Disability Fund is 7%. I put 7% of my paycheck every 2 weeks into the CSRS Retirement Disability Fund. But CSRS interim employees, they put in 0.8% of their paycheck into the CSRS Retirement Disability Fund and 6.2% into Social Security. The FICA tax, Dan. I know, Dan, you're good at math. Can you add 0.8 and 6.2? What do you come up with?
A 7?
They take 7%. That's how they split it up. And then once these employees, in 1987, all these CSRS interim employees, come January 1st, 1987, the official start of FERS, they're all switched over to FERS, and that 0.8% that went into the CSRS Retirement Disability Fund was put into the FERS Retirement Disability Fund, and these employees got credit for the FERS service, even though they were so-called CSRS interim employees.
Gotcha.
And that was considered to be creditable service. Now, I will tell you what is not credible service. When a FERS employee makes a deposit for active duty military service, they will not, that is not counted as far as the minimum 5 years that you have to have. But I will tell you what active duty military service deposits are accredited for. They are credited for eligibility once an employee has the minimum 5 years of credible service. Then any active duty military service, any unused sick leave will be counted toward the employee's years for purposes of computing the employee's FERS annuity. I have to point out, though, unused sick leave cannot, even though it's used for purposes of computation, it's converted to months and days of service, it cannot be used for eligibility. But again, active duty military service deposits will be counted for purposes of counting the number of years needed to be eligible to retire and in the computation of the FERS annuity. All I'm saying is that in counting the 5 years, the minimum 5 years that you need to be vested in the system, you cannot count bought back military service and unused sick leave.
Gotcha. Now, your next section is really important for so many people right now. And that is where you talk about FERS deferred retirement. So walk us through that. And folks, lean in, pay attention on this one, grab the article because this is super important. So Ed, walk us through that.
Yes. When a FERS employee who leaves federal service, and let's say they leave federal service, Dan, with at least 5 years of credible service, at least 5 years. They have at least 5 years. In other words, they are vested in the system, Dan. When you have 5 years of credible service, a FERS employee, as I said, you're vested in the system. Now, what does that mean? It means if you leave federal service and you don't withdraw your contributions, you're eligible to receive a deferred annuity. What's deferred mean? It means you'll get it later. What's later? It depends on how many years of service you have when you leave federal service. And I have a table that shows that if you leave federal service with between 5 and 19 years of service, 5 and 19 years of service, then you're eligible to receive a deferred retirement. You'll get your deferred annuity starting the month after you become age 62. If you have between 20 and 29 years of service when you leave federal service, you're eligible for a deferred annuity starting the month after you're age 60. And if you leave federal service with over 30 or more years of service, you're eligible to receive a deferred retirement. You get your FERS annuity starting at what's called your minimum retirement age. What is minimum retirement age? It's some age between 55 and 57, depending on what year you're born. For most employees today, their minimum retirement age is going to be between 56 and 57. Essentially, if you were born after 1964, well, I should say, if you were born after 1960, your minimum retirement age is between 56 and 57. If you're born after 1969, your full retirement age is 57. There's a table out that's available that tells you which are. But that's when you would start receiving your deferred annuity. How is the deferred annuity calculated? How is your FERS income? It's based on your years and service at the time you left federal service and your high 3 average salary at the time you leave federal service. Now, Dan, that's why you didn't ask me something. Isn't it true when a FERS employee retires on a regular, immediate, even early retirement, don't they get credit for unused sick leave in the calculation of their annuity?
For the immediate retirement?
Even early retirement. We have a Vera.
Yeah, Vera Visa. Yep.
Yeah, Vera Visa. They get credit for unused sick leave in the calculation of their annuity. Now, what's happening, I said a while back that you cannot use unused sick leave to make you eligible to retire. But if any unused sick leave a FERS employee has at the time he or she retires is converted to months and days of service and added to their existing service time for purposes of computing their FERS annuity. If someone has a year's worth of unused sick leave and they retire, let's say they retire at their minimum retirement age with 30 years of service, for purposes of calculation, they have 31 years of service. It's added. But here's the bad news. Under a deferred retirement, when you leave federal service, you lose all of your unused sick leave. It will not be used in the calculation of the FERS annuity. It's lost.
Gotcha. That is unfortunate.
Let me point out something else unfortunate. Let's take the example of somebody who left federal service now in 2025. Let's say they have 15 years of service and they have they have a high 3 average salary of $100,000. And they're, I don't know, let's say they're 40 years old. 40 years old. Now, the earliest they can get their deferred retirement is age 62. That's 22 years away. That high 3 average salary of $100,000 is not going to be adjusted for pay increases. It's frozen, Dan. Are we having a little inflation these days?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think the purchasing power of that FERS annuity is going to be 22 years later? I mean, right now, the way they would compute it is 15 years times 1% times 100,000 is $15,000. That's what they would get 22 years from now. With inflation running what? 4%?
Yep.
The purchasing power of that annuity is going to be maybe reduced by maybe 50 to 60%, not more.
Ed, I agree. And I think you and I both agree that, one of the things we're hoping to accomplish with this article is it's still not the best, but all is not lost with it. So, it does make a heck of a case, and I'll put in a plug here for something that we've written about, Ed. I know you're familiar with it, and that's the reemployment priority list. Because, Ed, I know you've seen it. I've seen it in my career. Feds come back, and I understand the folks may be leaving with a very sour taste in their mouth, but the world changes. Administrations change, priorities change, everything's changed. So many, many, many feds do come back. And that reemployment priority list is an important thing. We've got an article on it. Check it out, because, Ed, if somebody comes back, 5 years later, 10 years later, well, now they're building a new high 3 that's going to be more in line with inflation, correct?
Yes. And take my example here. This employee leaves at age, what did I say? The employee left at age
40.
40. Okay. They have 15 years of service. Let's say 5 years from now, there's a new administration, Newton, everything changes. The federal government wants to start hiring again. The employee comes back at age 45, resumes where they left off, Dan. And they work, let's say, 15 more years to age 60. They're going to obviously have a higher salary than they did.
Yes.
Okay. So now when they could retire at age 60 with 30 years of service plus unused sick leave. By the way, the unused sick leave will at that point will come back. In other words, it's going to be where he'll pick up where he left off, when he left federal service.
And that's
important.
important.
If he's really ambitious, he'll work till 62.
Oh, yeah.
And have 32 years of service, and he'll get a 10% bonus. How so? Because the calculation of the FERS annuity, if you retire any time before age 62, the accrual factor, that is, if for every year of service, you get 1% per year of service. At age 62, if you have at least 20 years of service, the accrual factor is 1.1%. Accrual factor. That's a 10% increase, permanent. I don't know how you feel, Dan, but boy, a 10% bonus.
I'm old school, Ed. I say 10% more is always better than not. So I keep my math simple. Great points all the way around. So, Ed, next you talk about TSP vesting, and that's important. What are the rules there?
TSP vesting. Okay, let's do the very easy part first. Federal employee, makes no difference, CSRS or FERS, who contributes to the TSP every 2 weeks via payroll deduction. All contributions to the TSP, whether it's traditional TSP, Roth TSP, or to both. Contributions are coming from where? An employee's paycheck. It makes no difference how many years of service you have. All contributions that an employee makes to the TSP coming from the paycheck and all the associated earnings, Dan, belong entirely to the employee. They're vested from day one. Why so? Dan, where's it coming from? Their paycheck. It's their money.
Yep. Absolutely.
All contributions may be a payroll deduction, and all the associated is an employee is vested 100% from day one. All of it. Now, FERS employees get matching contributions. And there have been many changes over the years. Used to be the FERS employees had to wait to start contributing to the TSP. That's no longer the case. When do they start contributing? In fact, they do it automatically. They I think it's 5% of their paycheck is taken out their first pay period. Now, why is it 5%? Because the maximum agency match for FERS employees is not 5%, but 4%. In order for a FERS employee to get the maximum annual match from their agency of 4%, a FERS employee must contribute at least 5%, each pay date. Each pay date.
Yep.
I got some great news on this one.
Yes, you do.
I have to wait to get that matching after you in new service a certain ways? No. A FERS employee is vested 100% from day one. There's no waiting period here. 100% on all the matching contributions and all the associated earnings on the matching contributions. It's their money. It's the government cannot take that matching back. None of that money can be taken back by the government if an employee leaves federal service. We're going to talk in a few moments about what employees can do with their TSP if they leave federal service. We're going to talk about that next. So we got the contributions that employee makes they're completely, and the associated earnings, they're 100% vested from day one. The matching contributions for FERS employees and associated earnings vested from day one. Now, is there any waiting period as far as employee? How long an employee has to be in federal service in order to keep TSP contributions? And the answer is, for a FERS employee who is getting agency matching contributions, a FERS employee gets an automatic, it's called the automatic 1%. 1% of what? Their annual salary. That's their SF50 salary. And that is the case whether the employee contributes or not. It's an automatic thing. It's automatic. It's taken out automatically. In the case of the automatic 1% of SF50 salary contribution, in order to keep that money as well as the associated earnings, a FERS employee would have to have a minimum 3 years of service. 3 years of service. That's most FERS employees. There are some exceptions. I'll give you one example. Congressmen and their staff. How long do they have to be in Congress, working in Congress, to get that, to be vested in that 1%? Want to guess, Dan?
2 years?
2 years. I'm very curious. What's the term of a congressman? Is it House of Representatives? 2 years. Okay. All right. I was just wondering where they came up with that. Anyhow, and how does one know? How does a FERS employee know that they've reached that 3-year period? It's something called the TSP service computation date. The TSP service computation date. What is the service computation date? Year, month, day. That is the date that the employee made his or her very first contribution to the TSP. When an employee is hired now, they're automatically put into the TSP. So that first pay period, they're going to be putting money in. It's automatic, unless the employee says, I don't want to do that. The employee can opt out of that, by the way. They don't have to do that. They don't have to do the automatic thing. They can say, I don't want anything coming out of my paycheck. I got big bills now. In a few years, I'll get into it. They can
Gotcha.
I think they're making a mistake, but that's just me. I think you should be contributing from day one. But anyhow, there are some employees, for one reason or another, and I'm sure they get legitimate reasons they cannot contribute to the TSP, they opt out. So an employee who does not opt out and they're making their first contribution to the TSP, that first pay period, their hire date is their TSP SCD. Go forward 3 years from that TSP SCD, then they're vested in the 1%, as well as all the associated earnings.
Gotcha.
Those are the rules regarding TSP vesting.
And that's important stuff, folks. And again, head over to the Fed Zone, grab the article. The notes are all pre-taken for you. Make this part of your guidebook for your decision making going forward, because this is a terrible time. We recognize that. But you can make it worse by not being informed. And that's what we're hoping to avoid here. So, Ed, to kind of round out today, what are the options relative to TSP for feds who may have to leave service?
This is very important for federal employees who are leaving federal service when it comes to their TSP. I'm going to go through the various options, what they can do with it. what they do with their vested TSP account. For most employees, that's going to be their everything they have. They've been in the government, they've been in federal service for at least 3 years. They can keep the TSP there. They don't have to withdraw it. They do not have to withdraw it. They can keep the TSP as is, even though they're leaving federal service. They can't contribute to it. They cannot put money. They cannot contribute, because they're not getting paid. They're not getting a paycheck from the federal government, but they can leave it there. Does that mean it's going to sit there and do nothing? No, it's still going to accrue earnings. The employee can make interfund transfers, and maybe down the line they want to they decide, well, I think I like to roll it over. I like to roll over maybe a portion of it, direct rollover to what? To a traditional, in the case of the traditional TSP, to a traditional IRA. Maybe they're going to work for a private company that has a 401k plan. They can request a direct rollover of a portion or all of their traditional TSP to a traditional 401k plan, let's say, a 403b plan. If they have, in the case of the Roth TSP, they can request a direct rollover of a portion or all the Roth TSP to a Roth 401k plan. It's apples to apples here. They can also request a direct rollover of a portion of their traditional TSP to a traditional IRA. From that point, what can they do with their traditional IRA? Well, if they're under 59 and a half, they cannot take money out without penalty. Well, what they can do, Dan, is with that traditional IRA, they could convert that traditional IRA to a Roth IRA.
Sure.
They'd have to pay tax, federal and state tax, no penalty though. But now they have themselves a Roth IRA.
Yes.
Now this is good planning down the road because, down the road, they're going to be taking money out, and nothing could be nicer, taking money out of your retirement and not have to pay tax via Roth. I just want to give employees who are leaving federal service just a word of caution when it comes to particularly their TSP. Dan, you know this as well as I do. There are bad apples out there. And there are individuals, for companies, plans who want to take advantage of the situation.
Yes.
They want to make money. And they're going to, and they're out there. They said, they tell these employers, we'll help you get through this. And all it is a sell job because they want to get a hold of their retirement accounts, particularly TSP, to make money. And departing employees advise, be careful. Be careful. In any situation out there that's not good, somebody out there, it's so unfortunate, wants to take advantage of people who are, at this point, are not in any position to be taken care of, nor should they be.
Absolutely. And Ed, you and I fight that every single day in the information that we get out there. And folks, one other thing I'll just throw in there, I think we're the only financial folks that are ever going to say this. If you are thinking about getting money out of TSP and there's even a scintilla of possibility that you could return to federal service, don't close it out. Okay, you leave a small amount in there. Ed, it's $250. Am I correct?
I think it's $3,500 now.
$3,500. Okay. In TSP, you can go back in later. One of the things, again, we're running into this. Okay. There are a lot of guardrails around TSP. So we occasionally meet feds saying, I got to get it out of there. I'm afraid they're going to take it away from me. There's federal law protecting you there. So don't be stampeded into doing something. We're really proud of the fact that we give the straight info here. So when in doubt, come back to the website. You can come in the middle of the night and read it. I won't even know you were there. Just grab all the free stuff. Just make sure that you have the information you need to make the best decision. This could be very well a terrible situation for you, but there are ways it could be made worse if you don't know the rules. So that's what we're trying to do and get that. Brother Ed, you did it again. Folks, this is a massively important topic. We're meeting people who are scared and making decisions based on incomplete information. So I'm going to make a special ask here. Please, 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 please share this information. Share the article. share this podcast with friends and colleagues. Too many people are making decisions with incomplete information, and you can help us correct that. And Ed, as I always do, I want to say on behalf of all Feds, thank you for being a great resource that you are.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Folks, that's a wrap. We are Serving Those Who Serve. Hey, do me a favor, subscribe to this podcast on our YouTube channel and or Spotify if that's your preference. And please remember to share it with your friends. And don't forget our live webinars every single week, pretty much. We have recently added ones that cover VERA, VSIP, discontinued service retirement. You need it, we do it. So we put it up there. So check us out. You can find that at swserve.com. You will see the whole gamut there. The guru will come to you, reach you where you are, teach you where you are, and above all, serve you where you are. Sign up for one, sign up for all of them, and share them with your friends. I guarantee you they will thank you. And don't forget to read Ed every single week in the Fed Zone. That's fed-zone.com. So as is my want, for Ed, the crew at Serving Those Who Serve, and me, Dan Sipe, I'm going to sign off as I always do by saying good luck, Godspeed, and above all, remember, it's your FedLife. Make it a great one because you deserve it. Even in these trying times, you can do things to make it better. That's what we're here for. That's what we want to do. Stay well, everybody. We are out.